All right, so welcome to our deep dive into the early life and career of Bill Gates.
Yeah.
We're going to be drawing from excerpts of his memoir, Bill Gates, The Early Code. And we're not just, tracing a timeline here. We're trying to understand how this particular mind was built, kind of a blend of strategic thinking, relentless curiosity, and an almost scary ability to master, these complex systems. So to kind of set the stage, let's rewind back to Seattle in the 1960s,
Okay.
a city that was buzzing with, the energy of Boeing and the World's Fair, sort of this backdrop of innovation and possibility.
I think what's fascinating is that even in that environment,
Mm-hmm.
one of Bill's most formative influences came from something seemingly very ordinary, his grandmother Gami, and her just unbeatable card game skills.
Right, young Bill thought it was magic, but Gami let him in on her secret strategy.
Yeah.
But how do you think this translated into his later success? I mean, is it really as simple as, learn to think strategically and you're good to go?
I think it's deeper than that. Um, think about it. Card games, especially the ones that Gami played, require you to not just plan your own moves, but also anticipate your opponents, to calculate probabilities, manage risk. These are all core elements of what we call systems thinking, understanding the underlying mechanics, the cause and effect, and using that to your advantage.
So this wasn't just about, winning a hand of cards. It was about building this mental framework that he could apply to anything, from, coding to business. That's pretty powerful.
Exactly. And this systems thinking approach really started to show up early on for Bill. In school, he gravitated towards logic-based subjects like math, almost like he was drawn to deciphering the code of the universe.
Right.
He wasn't a straight-A student across the board, but he had this laser focus on the things that truly captured his interest.
Like the contempt club that he started, right?
Right.
A group of high schoolers debating these, serious topics, almost like a mini think tank.
Exactly. And it shows this early inclination towards tackling complex issues, dissecting arguments and seeking solutions collaboratively. It also reveals this comfort with challenging the status quo, something that would become increasingly important later on.
So we're seeing this pattern of strategic thinking and a thirst for knowledge really taking root. But things really take off at Lakeside School, right? That's where he encounters something that changes everything. Computers.
It's a pivotal moment for sure. Lakeside was this elite private school. And at first, Bill felt like an outsider. He found his footing, though, with Ken Evans, a classmate who shared his ambition. But the real game changer was the arrival of a teletype machine connected to a time-shared computer.
Hold on, time-shared computer. What exactly does that mean?
Imagine a single computer serving multiple users simultaneously, each getting a slice of its processing power. Incredibly limited compared to today's standards, of course. But back then, it was cutting-edge technology. And for Bill, it was like opening a door to this whole new world. This is where he first encountered coding, and it was like a spark ignited.
So this one machine in this one school becomes the catalyst for, well, everything that follows. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. It's a potent reminder, I think, of the impact of access and opportunity.
Right.
And combine that with Bill's inherent drive and curiosity.
Yeah.
And you have a recipe for something extraordinary. And it wasn't just him. This also drew in Paul Allen, his future business partner, and Rick Weiland, another key figure in the Microsoft story. And they formed this informal computer club, almost like a band of explorers venturing into uncharted territory.
And then comes C Cubed, which sounds almost too good to be true. Unlimited computer time for a bunch of teenagers?
I know, right? It was. C-Cubed was this local startup that needed their computer systems tested. And in exchange, Bill and his friends got to use the system whenever it wasn't being used by clients. This included the PDP-10, a very powerful mainframe computer at the time.
Now, this is where things get really interesting. I read about them dumpster diving for code printouts. What was that all about?
This is where their hunger for knowledge and resourcefulness shines. Code printouts were basically the source code of programs, often discarded by companies. By scavenging these, they could dissect the code, learn from others' work, reverse engineer solutions.
So they were literally digging through the trash to find these hidden treasures, these valuable pieces of knowledge that others had just thrown away. It's like a real-life digital treasure hunt. It's a reminder that sometimes the most valuable resources are the ones we overlook.
For sure. And it fostered this hacker mentality, not in the malicious sense, but in terms of being resourceful, finding creative solutions, constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible. They weren't afraid to get their hands dirty, both literally and figuratively.
Okay, so they're coding day and night, learning from each other, basically becoming these self-taught experts. What happens next?
Well, this intense immersion leads to Bill's first useful program, a recipe organizer inspired by his mother. Might seem mundane compared to what came later, but it marks this shift from simply playing with code to actually applying it to solve real-world problems.
So he's starting to see the potential of software to make people's lives easier, even in a small way. That's a pretty big leap in thinking.
It is. And then comes a setback. Bill discovers a security flaw in the PDP-10, a vulnerability that allowed him to bypass the system's time limits. He essentially hacked the system, and as a result, got himself banned from C-Cubed.
Wait, so this future tech giant gets banned from his computer playground? That's kind of ironic, isn't it?
It is. But sometimes limitations can be incredibly valuable. This forced break pushed Bill to explore other activities, like hiking and Boy Scouts. He learned teamwork resilience, the importance of stepping away from the screen every now and then.
So even getting kicked out of computer paradise had its upsides. It's almost like life was preparing him for the challenges ahead.
It really is. A good reminder that sometimes detours can lead to unexpected growth and valuable lessons. And for Bill, those lessons would prove essential as he navigated the increasingly complex world of technology.
Okay, so he's back in school. He's had his computer privileges revoked. But his passion for coding is still burning bright. What happens next?
Or remember his friend Kent from Lakeside. They had teamed up to create a computerized scheduling program for the school. It was an ambitious project, and they were both deeply invested in it. But then tragedy struck. Kent died in a mountain climbing accident.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
It was a devastating loss for Bill. But he channeled his grief into finishing the project as a tribute to his friend. He enlisted Paul Allen's help, and they poured their energy into completing the scheduling program. This experience not only deepened their bond, but it also highlighted their shared drive to use their skills to create something meaningful, something that could make a difference.
So they're coding, grieving, and starting to envision a bigger future for themselves. What happens next?
Well, this is the early 1970s, and the world of computing is rapidly evolving. They were witnessing the rise of microprocessors, these tiny chips that held the potential to revolutionize computing, and they knew they wanted to be a part of it.
And this leads us to Bill's time at Harvard, right? But I have a feeling that coding wasn't far from his mind.
You're absolutely right. He was technically enrolled at Harvard studying applied math. But his heart was still very much in the world of code, and as luck would have it, his dorm room was right across from the Incan lab, which housed a PDP-10 computer connected to ARPANET.
Hold on, ARPANET. What's that?
Think of it as the precursor to the internet. It was a network of computers primarily used by research institutions and the military. And Bill, being Bill, managed to secure access to it. It was like a digital playground for his curious mind.
So while he's technically a Harvard student, he's still immersed in the world of coding, exploring this early version of the internet. It's like he's living a double life.
He was. And remember Paul Allen, he had moved to Boston as well. And they continued to brainstorm ideas, driven by their shared fascination with microprocessors and the possibilities of personal computing. They were both convinced that these small, affordable computers would one day be in every home.
Okay, I'm sensing a pivotal moment coming. This is where the Altair 8800 enters the picture, right?
You got it. In January 1975, Popular Electronics magazine featured the Altair 8800, a build-it-yourself computer kit for just $397. Now, it was rudimentary by today's standards, but Bill and Paul saw its potential. They knew this was the beginning of something big.
They sensed a revolution brewing.
They did, but there was a problem. They didn't actually have an Altair or the Intel 8080 microprocessor to test their software on. Remember, this was before the days of readily available computer components.
Resourceful as always, I bet they found a workaround.
They did. Paul had this brilliant idea, quote, why not simulate the Intel 8080 chip using Harvard's PDP-10?
Whoa, so they're basically building a virtual computer within a computer, just so they can test their code. That's incredible.
Exactly. This allowed Bill to write a compact version of BASIC, the programming language. Specifically for the Altair, they enlisted the help of Monte Davidoff, another student, and after an intense 6-week coding marathon, they had their program ready to go.
6 weeks of nonstop coding. Talk about dedication.
And pressure. They knew they were racing against time. Other programmers were also working on basic interpreters for the Altair. It was a high-stakes competition, and the winner would have a significant advantage in this emerging market.
So what happened? Did their gamble pay off?
It did. Paul flew to Albuquerque to meet with Emites, the company behind the Altair, and demoed their basic program. To everyone's amazement, it worked flawlessly.
I can only imagine the tension in that room. This was make or break for them, right?
Absolutely. But their hard work, ingenuity, and a little bit of luck paid off. Emites immediately agreed to a licensing deal, and Bill and Paul officially formed their partnership, Microsoft.
And with that hyphenated name, a tech legend is born. But their journey is just beginning, isn't it?
Oh yeah, just the beginning.
What happens next?
Well, first they had to deal with the fallout from using Harvard's computer resources for commercial purposes. And then there was the challenge of navigating the complexities of a rapidly evolving tech landscape. The licensing deal with MITes was just the first step. The real test was yet to come.
All right, so we're back. And last time we left off with Bill and Paul kind of celebrating their licensing deal with Maids for their Altair basic software. But as you'll see, things were about to get a whole lot more complicated for the fledgling Microsoft.
Yeah, that's right. The personal computer market was exploding, and Maids was struggling to keep up. They ended up being acquired by another company called Pertec Computers. And Pertec had, well, a very different interpretation of that original licensing agreement.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Well, Pertec believed that when they bought Maids, they also acquired the rights to Microsoft's BASIC program. That meant any future versions, any updates or improvements would belong to them, not Microsoft.
That sounds like a disaster for a software company. Imagine not being able to control your own product.
It could have been the end of Microsoft before they really got started.
Yeah.
But luckily, Bill had a secret weapon. His father.
Bill Gates Sr., the prominent lawyer. This is where his legal expertise comes into play, right?
Exactly. The original contract with MITes had a clause stating that the license holder must make best efforts to secure sub-license agreements for the software. If they failed to do so, the contract could be terminated.
So they argued that Pertec wasn't doing enough to promote and license BASIC, thereby violating the terms of the agreement.
Precisely. It was a risky move, but Bill Sr.'s guidance was essential in navigating this legal battle. And after a long and intense arbitration process, they won.
That's incredible. It's amazing how one small clause in a contract can have such a huge impact.
It highlights the importance of carefully considering the details, especially in such a rapidly evolving industry like tech. And it's another example of Bill's strategic thinking, always looking for angles and anticipating potential pitfalls.
So with Pertec out of the picture, Microsoft was free to pursue other opportunities. What happened next?
They set their sights on some of the biggest emerging players in the home computer market, companies like Apple, Commodore, and Radio Shack.
Wow, so they were aiming for the top right from the start.
Absolutely. They had this vision of software being the driving force behind the personal computer revolution, and they understood that securing partnerships with hardware manufacturers was key to making that vision a reality.
So they weren't content with just creating great software. They wanted to be the operating system, the foundation for the entire industry.
Exactly. And these early deals were crucial in establishing Microsoft's dominance. They essentially became the default operating system for a whole generation of personal computers.
It's fascinating to think how much those early decisions shaped the tech landscape we know today. It's like they were playing a game of chess, anticipating their opponent's moves, and positioning themselves for long-term success.
That's a great analogy. They were constantly analyzing the market, identifying trends, and adapting their strategy accordingly.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing, right? There must have been challenges along the way.
Of course, the tech industry is notoriously competitive, and Microsoft faced numerous obstacles. But they were always able to adapt and overcome.
Like what kind of obstacles?
Well, for one, there was the constant pressure to innovate. As technology evolved, they had to constantly improve their software, develop new features, and stay ahead of the competition.
Right, because if you're not moving forward in tech, you're falling behind.
Exactly. And then there were the internal challenges. Managing a rapidly growing company, balancing creative vision with business strategy, building a strong team, those are all incredibly difficult tasks.
So it wasn't just about writing brilliant code. It was about building a company, a culture that could sustain that level of innovation.
And Bill's leadership was crucial in that regard. He was demanding, yes, but also inspiring. He had this uncanny ability to attract and motivate top talent.
It's interesting how his early experiences seem to have prepared him for these challenges. The strategic thinking he learned from his grandmother, the resilience he developed at Lakeside, even the setbacks he faced at C-Cubed, all of these contributed to his ability to navigate the complexities of building a successful business.
You're absolutely right. Those formative experiences shaped his mindset, his approach to problem solving, his ability to anticipate and adapt to change. And that's what ultimately set him apart.
So they've got the deals, the talent, and the vision. What happens next?
Well, as the personal computer market continues to explode, a new player emerges. One that would challenge Microsoft's dominance in a way they never anticipated.
Intriguing. This sounds like a perfect cliffhanger.
It is. Stay tuned for the final part of your Bill Gates deep dive, where we'll explore the rise of a formidable competitor and the challenges and triumphs that define Microsoft's journey to global dominance.
We'll be right back with part 3. Don't go anywhere. All right, so we're back for the final chapter of our Bill Gates deep dive, and things are about to get really interesting. Last time we were talking about Microsoft securing those crucial deals with major PC manufacturers, positioning them as, the dominant force in the operating system market. But the tech world is rarely a predictable place, right?
Right. The late 70s, early 80s was a time of incredible innovation, but also fierce competition. And a new rival emerged, one that would push Microsoft to its limits: IBM.
IBM, the giant of the computing world. I thought they were mainly focused on mainframes, those massive computers used by corporations and governments.
They were, but in 1980, IBM decided to enter the personal computer market. And to do that, they needed an operating system. They approached Microsoft to develop one for their new PC, the IBM PC.
Wow, talk about a game changer. This must have been a huge opportunity for Microsoft, but also a lot of pressure to deliver.
Absolutely. But here's where things get interesting. Microsoft didn't actually have a fully developed operating system ready to go. They had been focusing on programming languages, like BASIC.
So what did they do? Did they turn down IBM?
No, they got resourceful. They licensed an existing operating system called 86DOS from a small company called Seattle Computer Products. They then modified it, adapted it to IBM specifications, and rebranded it as MS-DOS.
So they basically bought someone else's operating system and tweaked it. That's pretty clever. But wasn't it risky? What if it hadn't worked out?
It was a calculated risk, and one that paid off brilliantly. It allowed them to meet IBM's needs quickly and secure a foothold in a rapidly growing market. But what's even more remarkable is the deal they struck with IBM.
What was so special about it?
Instead of selling MS-DOS outright to IBM, Microsoft retained the copyright and licensing rights. This meant they could license MS-DOS to other computer manufacturers, essentially creating a whole ecosystem of IBM-compatible PCs.
That's incredible foresight. They turned one deal into a potential gold mine.
Exactly. It was a masterstroke of business strategy orchestrated by Bill Gates himself. And as the IBM PC became the industry standard, so did MS-DOS. Microsoft was now the dominant force in the operating system world.
Okay, so they've conquered the operating system world, thanks to a combination of clever deal-making and a bit of luck. What's next?
Well, remember Apple. They were making waves with their Macintosh computers, which were incredibly user-friendly thanks to their graphical user interface, or GUI. Think icons, windows, a mouse. It was a radical departure from the text-based commands of MS-DOS.
Right. The Mac was all about making computers accessible to everyday people. You didn't need to be a programmer to use it.
Exactly. And Bill Gates, always attuned to the shifts in the market, recognized the power of this approach. He knew that Microsoft needed to develop their own GUI to stay competitive.
So this is where Windows comes in, right?
Exactly. In 1985, Microsoft released the first version of Windows, their own graphical user interface that ran on top of MS-DOS. It wasn't an immediate success. It was clunky, limited, and ran slowly on the hardware of the time.
So it wasn't quite the knockout punch they were hoping for?
No, but it was a crucial step. It laid the foundation for the future of personal computing. And over the next few years, they continued to refine Windows, releasing new versions that were faster, more powerful, and more user-friendly.
And this sets the stage for the epic battle between Microsoft and Apple, which would go on for decades.
You got it. It was a battle for the hearts and minds of computer users, and it shaped the trajectory of the entire tech industry.
But while they were battling it out with Apple, Microsoft was also facing challenges from within.
Right.
There were rumors of internal power struggles and disagreements over strategy.
There were. The company was growing rapidly, and there were inevitably tensions and conflicts. Bill Gates, for all his brilliance, was also known for his intense and sometimes abrasive personality. It wasn't always easy to work with him.
So it wasn't just about building great software. It was about managing people, navigating office politics, and making tough decisions about the future of the company.
Exactly. And it wasn't always smooth sailing. There were mistakes made, products that flopped, and moments where it seemed like Microsoft might lose its grip on the market.
But through it all, they managed to adapt, innovate, and ultimately come out on top.
They did. And a big part of that was Bill Gates himself. He was a visionary leader with an uncanny ability to anticipate market trends and assemble brilliant teams to execute his vision. He was relentless in his pursuit of success, and he pushed everyone around him to excel.
It's amazing to think about the impact they had on the world. Millions of people use Microsoft software every day. It's become an integral part of our lives.
It has. And it all goes back to those early years, the strategic thinking, the relentless curiosity, the willingness to take risks, and the ability to learn from mistakes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the early life and career of Bill Gates, what's the biggest takeaway for you? What's the one thing that really stands out?
For me, it's the power of a growth mindset. Bill Gates was never satisfied with the status quo. He was always pushing himself and his team to learn, to adapt, to evolve. He understood that the tech world, like life itself, is constantly changing. And to succeed, you need to be nimble, resourceful, and always willing to embrace new ideas.
That's a powerful message. It's not just about being smart or talented. It's about having that hunger to learn, to grow, to constantly improve.
Exactly. And that's something we can all apply to our own lives, no matter what our field or interests are. Bill Gates' story is a reminder that with passion, dedication, and a willingness to embrace the unknown, anything is possible.
Well said. It's been an incredible journey, exploring the formative years, the coding obsession, the birth of Microsoft, and the challenges and triumphs that shaped Bill Gates' path to becoming a tech icon.
It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you. It's fascinating to see how those early decisions and experiences laid the groundwork for such a remarkable story.
And for you listening, we leave you with this question. What's one area of your life where you can embrace a growth mindset? What's one challenge you can tackle with renewed curiosity and determination? Think about it. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.